Philadelphia is pretty clearly hiding something from the rest of the league. And in this video, I'll share what exactly that is because the film doesn't lie. Plus, take a look at the changes Nick Sirianni's making ahead of Tampa Bay. Of course, speaking of changes, there's a whole lot of speculation heating up around a few trade targets for Philly following the Nolan Smith loss. But just how likely is it, and what did Vic Fangio have to say about it? Let's talk about it and all the other latest injury updates. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? With it being my birthday and also just so happens to mark the start of my Cooper DeJean year, I'm going to give away one Cooper DeJean jersey to the top commenter on this video. So feel free to drop a comment and then battle it out in the comment section to see who can get the most likes on their comment. Now, speaking of battles, we got a big one coming up against the Bucs. Yet there's a couple things that seem very evident the Eagles aren't telling us, which I'll get to in a second. First, though, let's start with the fact that the Birds are headed to Tampa early, as they'll now be getting in late Friday evening instead of their traditional time on Saturdays for a road game, with Philly reiterating the weather forecast of 88 but a real feel of 103 being one of the biggest reasons to get in early. Seriously, I'm not lying about that. The coaches and training staff actually did a study over the offseason and determined that flying in a day earlier for a game that would experience extreme heat is the way to go.
They've done studies, 60% of the time it works. Every time.
Look, I don't know how much one day is going to help you get acclimated to the heat, but it can't hurt, and honestly, we saw last year, it can't be worse than last year. Heck, the Birds lost before the game even started, citing a lack of preparedness for the humidity and multiple players having to exit the game due to dehydration and cramps.
I ate more fettuccine Alfredo and drank less water than I have in my entire life.
Don't lie, that is what it felt like for the preparation last year, which is why Nick Sirianni is confident in the new plan this season.
Everything we do is to try to give ourselves the best chance, that our process is right to give ourselves the best chance to win. If your process is off, then, you don't have as much of a chance. And so our that was part of our process when we studied some things in the off season with the heat and everything like that. Get out there a day earlier to acclimate, one less day, off the plane. Before you play a game. So those are a couple things to name a few.
Personally, my opinion is that the heat acclimation is probably not going to make a difference, but when it comes to flying in early, I think that could have a potential impact because you're getting in a day earlier. Hopefully, the legs and everything feel a little bit fresher. Either way, it's really just about a mindset of dealing with the heat and everything else.
Now that I'm not a player, I'll be brutally honest. Playing in the heat sucks. I would much rather play in the dead of cold, snow, 20 degrees, And we played down in Tampa, actually, a game right after the Super Bowl with Doug, and I think Todd Bowles was just been hired down there, maybe. But either way, we go out for warm-ups, and they actually sent us in halfway through warm-ups because everybody was dying and sweating too much out there. Like, yeah, we're warming up. Everybody just go back inside. So it's real. Both teams have to do it, but obviously they're a lot more acclimatized to it. Mm-hmm. No question that playing in the heat in Florida that early is tough, especially for the big guys.
It's too late to do anything right now for it as far as prepping for it. You don't practice in the heat one day and say you're acclimated or take a pill and say you're acclimated. The key will be, it's a mindset, number one. Number two, we need to not let them have 8, 10, 12 play drives on us.
All right, I will have more on my Saturday game preview video, so keep an eye out for that. Saturday morning, it'll be dropping then. But I do think that this game comes down to a whole lot more even than it regularly does of play calling. And don't worry, I'll explain what I mean by that. So last year, the Bucs scored on 4 of their first 5 drives to take a 24-0 lead and effectively end the game. Yet the most important element to that was that midway through the second quarter, Tampa had held the ball for 19 minutes compared to the Eagles, who had only had the ball for 4 minutes. The game ended 36 minutes to 23 minutes, so it was pretty much even after that point. But the Bucs had zapped all the energy, and we all saw it. The fight had kind of left the Birds. Which is why I say this week, more than any other, it is paramount to hold on to the ball and have long, sustained drives. Something both teams are heavily emphasizing.
We'll have a good game plan, obviously, to try and tire these guys out. Advantage for us, we're in Tampa, the heat, they're not used to that. I know there's already been the stories that broke about them coming down to Tampa a day early. I don't necessarily think that helps them. One day doesn't get you acclimated to this humidity, so I think honestly, it makes them think about it more when they get down here earlier.
I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage, and whoever holds the ball longer, the other team probably going to struggle.
Okay, so it's obviously a little easier said than done to hold on to the football and have these long drives, but if they can do it, it's going to play a huge factor. Still, though, you look at the time of possession and the ground game for both teams, and something's been off for Philly, with both sides of the ball pretty clearly hiding a couple guys not being healthy. And you guys know I'm always on the lookout for ways to get healthier, which is why I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, AG1. And AG1 is a clinically backed daily health drink that combines your multivitamins, pre- and probiotics, superfoods, and antioxidants into one deliciously simple scoop. I'm serious, all I gotta do is one scoop in the morning with 8 to 12 ounces of cold water, and I'm good to go with 75 plus vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and the whole food sourced ingredients. The best part is AG1 is now available in original, tropical, berry, and citrus. And right now, you can get a free welcome kit when you subscribe, which includes 5 AG1 travel packs and a bottle of vitamin D. All you have to do is go to drinkag1.com/Philly Special or scan the QR code. Because AG1 is a NSF certified for sport, which is the gold standard in independent quality and safety certifications. And they're also flexible, risk-free, meaning you can adjust, update, or cancel your membership at any time with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's gut health, energy, daily nutrients, and immune support. So like I say, give it a try today. Go to drinkag1.com/Philly Special or scan the QR code. Also, when you subscribe, you'll get a free welcome kit, which includes 5 AG1 travel packs and a bottle of vitamin D. Once again, thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this video. So why have the Birds really struggled against the run? Well, shout out to Johnny Page for doing a deep dive film analysis on this one, but basically it comes down to a couple main areas. One, Jalen Carter struggled quite a bit, and honestly he's looked gassed at times. And two, linebacker play has left a bit to be desired from Jihaad Campbell. Relax, he still played perfectly fine, but he's a rookie, and I'll get into more of that here in a second. Now, for Jalen Carter, not as much of an excuse, but remember, Vic Fangio did say after the Chiefs game that JC is still rounding into shape. Yet it's pretty frustrating when you watch the film and see some instance of the bread man being a game wrecker, followed by plays of him being slow off the ball, getting driven backwards, and just not having enough in the gas tank to consistently be a difference maker. I mean, there's honestly no arguing that Jordan Davis is the best D lineman on this team right now, and that can't happen, no offense to JD. So yeah, Jalen Carter's got to be better. However, the second point Johnny brings up is that Jihaad Campbell, as good as he's been as a rookie, is still hesitant against the run and doesn't appear to fully trust his eyes yet. I know what you're saying, and you're perfectly accurate on this. It makes sense. He's a rookie. We don't expect the world from him, especially when it comes to run stops. Granted, when you've got an inconsistent interior D-line combined with a linebacker not reacting quickly against the run, it's going to give up more yards than you like. Of course, it's fair to question if Jalen Carter's injured because he's been dealing with a shoulder injury and frequently grabbed his arm throughout the Rams game. At the same time, he hasn't shown up on the injury report, so it's at least something to monitor, but they're not actually coming right out and saying it. I still don't think JC's 100%. And the same thing for Landon Dickerson, quite honestly. Because look, I appreciate Landon's toughness more than anyone. Like the fact that he's out there less than 2 months since knee surgery is ridiculous. And then you add in the back injury he suffered in week 1, and the dude is just a warrior. Although, like Anthony DeBona pointed out, he clearly has not been himself on the field. For example, the Pro Bowler has allowed 9 total pressures in 3 games, which in case you were wondering is a very uncharacteristically high rate for the 26-year-old. I mean, I probably didn't have to tell you that, but if you compare it to the rest of the rates throughout his career, it's 3.2% higher than any other season. I know it's a small sample size, but 3.2%, that is a significant difference. Yet forget the analytics, just use your eyes. Not only is the passing game going through some struggles, but Landon can't get the same kind of push to help the run game get going. By the way, not everything is on Landon, just want to make that clear, yet he's been a big reason for Saquon only being at 3.3 yards per carry through 3 games. Still though, you're right, a less than 100% 69 is better than whatever other option there is. But the optimism that I have is 1, if the passing game can get going, then that'll open things up, and 2, assuming there's no setbacks, then Dickerson should get healthier as the season goes along. Anyway, when it comes to the run game on both sides, what are you more concerned about, the offense or the defense for Philly? Look, it wouldn't surprise me to hear you say the defense, because I've gotten a lot of comments recently in light of the Nolan Smith news. Now, say what you will about the sacks not showing up, but Nolan's run defense was never in question. But relax, they're going to be fine though. This is exactly what Zadarius Smith is ready for.
I would say so, man. But like I said, man, it's going to be guys up now to where we all can play together, man, rotate. You know, we're going to keep the rotation going. Obviously, I just got here 2 weeks ago, so I'm still learning the defense. But it's me now going to the house and just learning the base stuff now. You know, learning the regular packages that I wasn't in that now I'm going to have to be a part of. this week coming up. So I'm ready for it, man. No pressure.
Not gonna lie, Big Z's already made a difference in the Eagles' wins versus the Chiefs and the Rams. Of course, it's still accurate, although the Eagles are 3-0 and they've been exceptional after halftime. They have just 3 sacks, which ranks 29th in the NFL. And shout out to Reuben Frank, but that's the second fewest they've had through 3 games since sacks became an official stat in 1982. Oh, and they're also only 27th in run defense.
Not great, Bob.
It's not, but remember, the things that I just talked about and brought up is what's going to fix it, not trading for another player. Although I know I've seen a lot of comments from past live streams and other videos out there. Plus, even beat writer Ed Crack speculated that perhaps a reunion with Vic Fangio's former pass rusher in Jalen Phillips could be a trade Howie Roseman considers closer to the trade deadline. Which, okay, sure, I wouldn't totally rule that out. We can't rule out anything with knowing Howie Roseman. But for those out there suggesting bigger names like Trayvon Walker or Trey Hendrickson, I mean, yes, we know the Eagles tried to make a play at Micah Parsons, yet the only move Fangio is in favor of is something long-term.
It's hard to improve your team drastically this time of year. I mean, I think if you look at some of those trades over the years, they really haven't had the effect that some teams were hoping for. Unless it's a trade that, where you're getting a guy that you're going to have for a few years.
Just saying, I'd be very careful about who we're talking about speculation or at least legit options out there, because who can you actually get that's going to stick around? You get a Trayvon Walker, but you're not going to pay him. Remember, you got to pay Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis maybe now, the way he's playing, Nolan Smith eventually, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. You got a lot of guys that are going to have contracts that you want to pay. Trayvon Walker's legit. He's a stud, but I don't know if you're going to give up, like, let's say, a first-round pick, and then you're going to say, sure, we'll just move on from that next year. Howie's incredible. He gets draft picks back. That I'm not concerned about. But I don't think that a first-round pick is something that he's willing to give up. If it's another player that maybe you only have to give up like a 4th or a 5th, sure, rent him for a short term. But Trayvon Walker, other guys like that, not as likely. Plus, we got to remember, it takes time to get acclimated. Heck, you got a veteran like Zadarius Smith who's been here for 2.5 weeks and still has a whole lot to catch up on.
I just got to go in and now learn the base stuff. That's, consistently dropping, what I'm saying, in coverage and playing in a 4-eye, doing things that I'm not used to doing, but I'm all for it, man. I'm a team player, and I'm going to get it done.
By the way, another timing aspect that comes into play is, remember, Nolan Smith will be back in like 5 to 6 weeks, so like Z admitted even, it's going to take, if you got somebody, 2 to 3 weeks to get acclimated, and then Nolan will be back. Plus, we're talking about a 100% Nolan Smith, and then you're going to have an issue for playing time because you want him on the field. That's why I've maintained if Philly were to trade for someone, that a guy like Phillips has some potential and is familiar with the system, but even then, I'm not completely sold. Look, obviously, the former first-round pick had a productive season under Fangio in 2023 with 6.5 sacks, but the recent injuries do give me pause, regardless of how much the Dolphins would be willing, or I guess how little the Dolphins would be willing to part with him for. So, yes, I mean, a fire sale's coming, that's inevitable, but still, I'm not 100% sure. Either way, though, not every player will have success here, and take Bryce Huff, for example. Now, I don't think Howie made a mistake to trade him away. Huff was done, Fangio was done, and the breakup needed to happen. Yet seeing Huff with 2 sacks in San Francisco, one of the best pressure rates, and the 10th best grade among all edge rushers this season should tell you that Fangio's system requires a very specific type of player. One like Jalyx Hunt. Of course, I get it that so far, Jalyx has not lived up to the hype on the stat sheet. But if you look into it a little further, the 24-year-old actually has been the most effective pass rusher with a pressure rate of 14% along with 3 quarterback hits. Meanwhile, the Bucs have been the 30th worst O-line when it comes to limiting pressure, so something's got to give on Sunday. Again, more info on that on my game preview video on Saturday, but for now, let's get you caught up on all the injury updates. And we'll start with the Eagles because after not practicing on Wednesday, Zack, Baun, Jihaad, Campbell, and Adoree Jackson all got in limited work on Thursday. And I don't have to tell you what kind of good news that is. However, I get it if you're like, yeah, but that was limited work, so who knows? And true, but both Baun and Campbell said they're good, so not really too much to worry about. Plus, after wearing a brace earlier in the week, Baun took it off and was only wearing a leg sleeve. Also, Adoree Jackson got in some work, and surprisingly, it looks like he may be more likely to go than Chris Godwin. Yeah, I know that's kind of crazy because I don't know if the Bucs wide receiver had a setback or what, but after being a full participant during Wednesday's practice, he was listed as a DNP for Thursday. Meanwhile, you got left tackle Tristin Wirfs, who went from limited participant to a full participant, and Baker Mayfield, who's still limited, but honestly, nothing to worry about there. At the same time, this is why I said to keep an eye on this, because I wouldn't put it past Tampa to go through a little bit of trickery to see who's going to be good to go, who's not. The deal with Godwin's strange, but again, this is Tampa we're talking about. which Bucs beat writer Greg Auman echoed the same sentiment, saying it sounds like that's part of the schedule and plan that Godwin has to practice twice a week in his return, so something to monitor, but Greg wouldn't necessarily think that's a setback towards Sunday. Plus, to take it a step further, when Greg was asked what percentage he'd give on Wirfs and Godwin playing, he couldn't put a number on it, but said he felt a lot more likely than not that both of them go. Either way, the good news is, and maybe the best news, that Lane Johnson is 100% and no limitations ahead of Sunday. And come on, we know the record when Lane plays versus when he doesn't, so that is a massive win. Quite honestly, probably the best thing ever. Not a big surprise that we felt like he was going to. I mentioned that in the last video, but if we have any other updates on the Bucs side or the Eagles, I'll keep you posted. Make sure to subscribe. Everything else as well. Got the Saturday game preview, so keep an eye out for that. I'll catch you in the next one. This has been the Philly Special.
Like I should feel like I should go.